Welcome to another episode of LendAPI Partner Podcast. Today I've got a special friend of mine, Ryan from Bankwell. Got a beefy title. I'm going to save it for him to introduce himself. Ryan and I know each other for a long time. And the reason why I prompted to invite him is because I read a whole interview of a book that was written by another fintech known quantity. I think her name is Angela Lau. On banking, artificial intelligence, things like that. And I'm like, wait, I know Ryan. And it was a great quote. I even texted him. It's like, wow, this is really smart. Could you come onto the podcast and talk about it? But anyways, enough about all of that. Ryan, good morning. Could you introduce yourself to the audience? You know, everybody knows you, but we want to hear about you. And if you want to talk about your current role, great. But we want to know your history, your background. Well, who is Ryan?
Man. Oh, geez. Thanks,
Yes.
Tim. Ryan Hildebrand. I'm the Chief Innovation Officer at Bankwell Bank. Bankwell is about $3.2 billion kind of community, but more commercial focused bank based in New Canaan, Connecticut. The bank's publicly traded and has customers in all 50 states. Been at the bank for the last 3 years, and I've been really enjoying kind of where we are in the life cycle of technology and banking at this point. There's a lot of crazy things that are happening. Obviously,
Right.
Tim, you're pushing forward yourself, my friend.
Pressing some buttons over here. But in the
Yeah.
past 3 years, Ryan, you've seen, my God, automation, new data availability, the whole BaaS, last kind of a genre, the banking as a service. And then now we're catapulting ourselves all the way to this agentic feature. Everybody we talk to must have, agents running around doing different things. As the Chief Innovation Officer, what are you seeing out there, and how does that translate into what Bankwell's doing, especially in the commercial lending space? Rope us all in. This is a really interesting span of 48 months that we sort of lived through.
Well, we've had a lot, right, since
Yeah.
the beginning of the pandemic, right? There's been
Yeah.
so much change, I'd say, in everything. But I think in banking, it's been pretty wild. You went from, pandemic to PPP to,
ERC.
SVB failing. You've got, obviously now into AI and kind of all the things that are happening there. And then actually in the interim, we had, banks, stubbing their toes on regulatory issues with banking as a service. So there's been a lot of change and I guess
Right.
growth and things. There's also been a lot of competition in banking from fintech, but also, things that are non-fintech from like the lending standpoint. So it's been super interesting
Right.
to see all the things that are happening. But
Right.
right now, it's technology is here, AI is here, and a small team, if not even a solo entrepreneur, can start a fintech product and launch and go quickly. When years in the past it would take millions and millions of dollars and lots of people to be able to launch something. So it's an interesting, exciting time for sure.
That's true. In all of the other spaces, we talk about this magnificent seven, right? The Meta, the Nvidia, I guess, Meta is Facebook, but maybe Intel. Who will be, sort of the surviving magnificent seven, not in terms of name brand like JP Morgan Chase or Wells Fargo, certainly Bankwell is part of that. What are some of the things right? Banks still have a lot of moat left over, right? We're talking about being attacked whichever way, but what are some of the things that the bankers, if I can use that term, are thinking about and say, well, we got to leverage the moat that we have and really sort of, sink our teeth, into whatever and expand on it and I hate to use the word survive out of this whole AI genre.
I
What are
mean,
some of the things that you guys are, in
yeah,
general, right? Think
y-
about
you're
to
right,
say
Tim.
we're the spine of it all.
It's survival at this point. If you're JP Morgan Chase, it's a different thing. I mean, I think I had a friend that used to work there, and they had 1,200 people working on Chase.com marketing website in engineering. Like, okay, so the sheer scale of, probably 50,000 people in technology working on AI is just absolutely insane compared to, Bankwell, we have about 180 people and,
Sure.
nine branches and, it's pound for pound, we're much more efficient than much larger banks. But at the same time, there's just a lot of technology that needs to be deployed.
Right.
And at the end of the day, a balance sheet is a balance sheet, and there's only so much you can lend on, and how much you can use to serve customers from a deposit and payment standpoint. So
Right.
it's survival of the fittest for sure. And I think went to a conference recently. There's a kind of a smaller community bank type conference that has put on called Acquire to Be Acquired. And for years, there was nothing happening. And this last year, it felt like everyone was actually being acquired or acquiring. It was really interesting to watch kind of the pace of deals that are happening this year. And so
Right.
it's for banks like Bankwell, you really have to kind of survive and remain independent. And to do that, you have to think about things differently, and that includes technology. You have to have table stakes. You have to have the ability to accept customers online, being able to, open up bank accounts and apply for loans. And before you didn't really necessarily have to do that, and now it's just table stakes to really remain in the game, I guess.
Right. There's a couple of things I want to talk to you about, but isn't technology the great equalizer? I mean, JP Morgan Chase, although they have 1,200 people working just on the marketing site, and you guys are fraction, but everybody has the same access to the Gemini's, OpenAI's, the Claude of the world. One engineer could do 100 engineers' job today. Isn't that an advantage, right? For I hate to use the word smaller bank, but like more nimble banks like you guys to kind of really fixate and drive a truck through this thing that JP Morgan Chase might not be thinking about. That to me is a great advantage, right? There you don't have to worry about that communication debt to talk to
It
everybody.
it can be, but you have to have the right people, right? And so I think at the end of the day, technology, is really even just about the people employing it, right? So it's, the biggest issue I'd say at banks is change management. And I think, that's really been hard, especially the people that have been attracted to banking and remain in banking. Change is hard, and I think we've been forced upon us to change. Um, but I think you're totally right. The technology can be the equalizer. It's just how it's being used.
Hmm.
And so, I think it's again, it's making sure that culture is something that matches that, and then you also need to have the people that can implement and get after it. Um, I think mistake that banks often make is like AI is a technology initiative run by IT, and it's really comes from leadership, board, and all the way down to folks, not just one group at the bank.
Right.
It's got to be something that's employed by everyone. And I'd say one of the best examples at Bankwell is we have someone who's our chief credit officer, and they are as much of a proponent of technology innovation as folks in our technology department. And it's really exciting to see kind of people kind of pushing to say how do we make this better? How do we automate this? How do we make lives of our teammates easier, I guess.
Right. It's a mission culture, David versus Goliath. Maybe that kind of an attitude, the underdog, right? We're going to use every weapon we've got, right,
Yep.
to fight through this whole thing. What
Yep.
do you think about that BVNK acquisition? That's a whole
I saw
non-traditional
that.
amount of everything. Uh,
Yeah.
JP
Um,
Morgan, Wells, and Bankwell, right? Probably looking at this stuff and said, well, maybe there is a opportunity for all of us to sort of stand up for the big four, big three, whatever it might be. What do you think about that acquisition, and where do you think that's going?
just I think it's super interesting. We'll see. Acquisitions always, I don't know what the percentages of them being successful are, but I think it's super interesting. I think on the the stablecoin side, I think it definitely has been a topic of conversation at the last couple conferences I've been at in banking. I think there's a little bit of concern that the kind of, if it's not part of banking ecosystem, then it really is an opportunity to potentially take away from the deposits, which is a big driver of how banks lend money, is having access to cheaper cost of capital. And I think that is something that's potentially could be competitive and exciting for banks that can participate. But at the same time, it's also, I think, could be pretty scary, because the core systems that banks are running on today are not fast, real time, and nimble at all. And so you put yourself into a place where you could potentially be left behind if you don't have things like a stablecoin rail. And I think that's something that makes a lot of bankers nervous, I guess.
Right. I mean, this is where a traditional sort of a banking payment rail is a MasterCard buying something that's brand new. And speaking of, we'll leave that for a second, but the cost of money is interesting. That's the traditional fiat banks have access to the Fed window and they can borrow at the Fed rate, right, at the cheapest sort of a rate. But there's also a bunch of people out there creating value, right? All the cryptocurrency, that stuff wasn't printed by the feds, and it was just a belief system that it carries value. And now people are thinking about all sorts of ways to borrow against that asset. Does that also create a sense of urgency for banks that says, well, my moat was regulation, regulators, cheap cost of capital, but now they have billions and billions of dollars being created out of thin air, and there's value behind it. And what do you think about that sort of money source that may chip away, some of the moat that the bank has traditionally hang their hat on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been being chipped away at, over the years. I think it's just accelerating at this point. I think the regulatory environment being hands off, I'd say, recently has been, probably good and bad for a lot of different reasons for community banks. Definitely, makes it easier to try new things, potentially go faster. I think probably the biggest, thing that's happened in banking has been the M&A side of things. I think that's the piece that the regulatory environment unlocks. But I don't see banks moving fast and building a lot of software at this point. It's really looking at things that they can buy or rent on the software side at this point, because they just don't have the ability to recruit 10x or 100x engineers that exist today. So it's regulatory is a double-edged sword, I guess. It could be the moat that protects things, but now every fintech that has a few bucks is applying for a charter or some type of charter, whether it's a community bank charter or it's a fin charter that allows them to run payments off of it. So we're here in competition land.
Right, you're absolutely right. All of the sort of pure play lenders like Klarna and, for example, Affirm, all those guys are seeking that Utah charter, right, to become a bank, to bypass all the banking as a service players. We certainly get a lot of calls from these banking as a service folks and say, well, what can we do, right? Do we need to create our own Affirm to stay competitive, because they like that revenue stream, or at least they see that revenue stream. But the current administration, I feel like our president have a little bit of a angst against the banks, right? From that whole, hey, well,
debanking, right?
Right, closing the bank accounts without, without any adjudication. I think he felt personally slighted by the J.P. Morgan Chase of the world. But then he's got the Genius Act, right? He came out and said, hey, look, to reduce the burden on the American citizens, we're gonna cap the credit card rate by 10%. And then I think the other day, a couple of days ago, he lowered the insurance requirements for mortgages, right? Trying to do some kind of economic activity. On one hand, I feel like the administration's got an agenda, right? On the other hand, it's just trying to throw stuff against the wall and to see what sticks. I mean, at the end of the day, gas prices going through the roof because of the war, and inflation hasn't really ceased. And the Fed chairman came out yesterday saying that, in so many words, he doesn't even know what's going on. How does that even play into your head, Ryan, as a person in the space for so many years? What's going on? Well, there's so much chaos, from from my angle. How do we even do work going forward?
Yeah, don't watch the news, Tim.
Don't watch the news.
I mean,
Exactly.
there's a balance to it, buddy, right? There's a lot of chaos going on. I think the only thing you can do is just kind of move forward and try to do what you're good at, I think. And so
Right.
that's what we've been trying to do at the bank. I think it's interesting is if you stop and look at the kind of the broader picture, then there's only so much you can do, right? And so we've got midterms, right, in the fall, and I think everyone in banking is saying, let's hurry up and get whatever needs to get done now
Right.
in the next couple months
Yeah.
versus kind of wait to see what happens,
Right.
with more chaos potentially in the fall. So,
Sounds
um,
like there's a lot more M&A deals happening, a lot more charter applications being submitted, right? It's trying to
this
get through
is
what we can get through.
this is the fastest and busiest time of this decade for sure, at
Yeah,
least, right? Yeah.
yeah. Like, went onto your website a couple of times. You guys have an amazing savings program, right? You got this deposit product sort of down pat. And also you guys do a lot of financing lending to the community, to the small businesses, right? Commercial clients as well. Uh, those ones and twos, right? The product that Bankwell really hang their hat on, what's unique about you guys, what was competitive. And also, we were talking about PPP, ERC earlier in this conversation. Now there's a whole cottage industry being developed to get the tariff refund, back to the
Oh,
back to the
oh,
community,
of
right?
course.
Yeah,
Yes.
right. I want
Who
you to,
thought about that?
yeah, maybe
Oh
there's something
man.
there to really help your constituents to sort of claw some of that back. I don't know what's in your head right now. All the products you guys are offering.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've been trying to pilot a lot of things, both new business lines, new products, new technology, and I think that that's been really, really helpful. I think the issue sometimes has been at a lot of banks is, banks spend more time evaluating a, $50,000 piece of software than they do on a $5 or $10 million lending decision. And I think that that becomes really hard to be competitive if you're spending a lot of time trying to evaluate 10 different providers of software. And so being able to pilot something quickly, see if it works, and kind of double down on it has been something that we've had success with. I think we launched a lending product a couple years ago locally. We call it the eSpire Growth Loan, and really it's a $15,000 loan for small businesses in kind of the Southern Connecticut. Got a simple application approval, within a couple days, if not a couple hours. And really the idea is make it easier for our local businesses to get capital, for us to bank them and kind of learn more about their business locally. And that's been really successful. It's been also helpful in Community Reinvestment Act type things where we spend a lot of time lending money outside of the state of Connecticut. We've got a really strong business helping serve skilled nursing facilities across the country. I think just like any solid community bank, if you can find a particular couple niches to serve and do it well and know kind of the players in the community there, that's kind of community banking now. It's not necessarily geography based, but it's something that we're really excited about. So we do a lot of lending outside of Connecticut, and so really for us, we want to make sure that we're taking care of businesses in our backyard too. So that's been really helpful as an example of a product that we've seen a lot of success with.
Right. How do you extend that community feeling to somewhere that you haven't been before? We had somebody else on from First Franklin. They have 500 branches in their local community on the southwest, eastern side of the country, and that community feel. People just come into the branch, maybe just grab a cup of coffee, really talk about their lives. That's really that speaks volumes, right? And then you guys sort of do the same thing with commercial, small business owners and things like that. That really tugs at the heart. But how do you carry that forward online, if you will, to just a neighboring state? How do you create that same kind of experience?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do that, right? So, the best way to do it is through technology. I think everyone's used to at this point, good apps, good technology at this point, being able to move quickly and not be frustrating by the user experience. I think that's really key at delivering. And then, as someone needs support, just being able to follow up with them quickly is important. I mean, that's as important as anything else. I think, people coming into the office and into the branch and asking questions and stuff like that is one way, but more and more, branch traffic is slower than can be. I mean, at the same time, if you're a small business, the best time for you is at Friday at 10 p.m. to be able to think about taking on a new loan, things like that. And
Right.
so, having good technology, alive and ready to go then is really important.
Yeah, a good interface, good mobile app, instantaneous, as we can best describe it, as possible, saving their time.
Yep.
Uh,
Yep.
might sort of trump the face-to-face conversation, see people's expression, all that stuff. Is it even possible to have like satellite bankers? Like if I can imagine you have 20 different bankers in all sort of metro areas representing Bankwell, and that person can still do a touch and feel sort of a visit if it's for higher dollar amounts, whatever it might be. Or is that regulatory issues?
No, so we've really transitioned to a private client group model, which is kind of a single point of contact for a customer, kind of the real community bank legacy of being able to have your banker, and your banker knows everything about your business and your family and those types of things. We just want to marry technology to that, and so we've been hiring a number of folks that have really strong depth in their communities.
Yeah, yeah,
We did open last couple of weeks. We did open a new branch in Brooklyn. So I think we have 9 branches now. But I think most banks are closing their branches. Although I did see that Chase and some of the bigger banks are opening a lot more. And it's obviously good marketing for us. We saw an opportunity to hire some people that have built really strong customer bases in Brooklyn, and so we opened that, and we think that as much as AI and technology is here, it's really at the end of the day the equalizer can also be really solid people in communities that can work with our customers. And I think
right,
it's marrying that human plus technology type element.
right. Other than financing needs, when Bankwell interacts with all these small business owners and I guess farmers as well, what is another need that they're looking for? You guys have the branch, you guys have the relationship folks, you guys have the technology. Anything else that you wish you could have? Man, I wish I could software that for them and their family or their business. Uh, do they also need some kind of a technology to get their lives right or better? Anything off the top of your head that's kind of
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, we definitely have seen various degrees of technology literacy, I'd say, with customers.
sure, sure.
We have some that just don't use technology too much, and we have others that want APIs and they want the ability to transact with their data, just like a fintech would. So you have to kind of go where the customer is, I'd say. And I think that's super important is just kind of understanding what a customer's needs are.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to carry stuff while you're cattle ranching or work on the field, but they may have a mobile phone in their, strapped to their hip or something like that. Wow, so fascinating to talk to a bank that really is part of the community. I can imagine the conversation that's been happening, right? They all know each other. Just that trust, that trust just can't be replaced by anything I can put my hands on. That's something powerful. Yeah. So Ryan, lovely to have you on this podcast, but yeah, and I appreciate our friendship over the
Yeah,
years, and,
yeah.
and I follow you on social media and all that stuff all the time, and then I live too far to be a client of Bankwell, but how do people find you guys at these 9 branches, online presence? How do people find Bankwell? Is it bankwell.bank or what's the URL?
Oh, mybankwell.com.
My
Um,
Bankwell.
yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I think we're doing like many community banks, is really trying to focus on niches that we do well. And I think our SBA 7A program has grown extremely fast here in the last couple of years. We'll do more than 100 million in loans, when we probably did 10 million a couple of years ago. So growing that business nationwide, and kind of focus on certain segments, which has been helpful. So like an interesting segment that we're going after is childcare centers. There's a lot of opportunity to help grow and stabilize kind of what's happening there. So that's another niche that we're playing in.
I love it. I love it. It's all about community. But Ryan, thank you for
Thanks,
being
Tim.
on the show. I learned a whole lot more about you and Bankwell. So got to have you back on again. Thank you.
Thank you.